assume I just go ahead and introduce Michelle. I don't call you back up. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. That was pretty good. We'll try one more time. Good morning. All right, very good. All right, so thank you all for making the time to come to the University of Central Florida here on a beautiful spring day. How many of you, this is your first Top Kit? Oh my gosh, that's awesome. How many of you were here yesterday for the Innovation Summit as well? That is equally awesome. Thank you. Thank you for making that commitment. How many of you are having heated, urgent discussions on your campus about coronavirus? I had to slip out yesterday morning for a heated, urgent meeting that had not previously been scheduled, which makes this discussion all the more relevant. How many of you are having conversations on your campus about, well, we're just going to go online? If we have to shut the campus down, we'll go online. Well, it's real easy to say that, right? And it's not quite so easy to do that, especially when you think about it. One of the things that I said in this meeting yesterday is that our online faculty, I'm not worried about them. They're the ones who know how to teach online. They probably already have an online section. They're going to be fine if something happened. However, it's the faculty who hate touching the LMS and don't teach online that are suddenly going to be told, you're online, that we're going to need to work with. And it's all of you in this room that are the ones that are going to have to work with them. And so these are the kinds of discussions to have about how do we adequately prepare faculty to teach online. And I would ask you to kind of keep in the back of your mind maybe an application of what we talk about over the next 2 days in the context of this pandemic that we're potentially facing, and how you can use this when you go back to your campuses if, God forbid, something happened and we had to apply it. It's extremely timely. I give great credit to the Top Kit planning team who a year ago decided to get hand sanitizers as the giveaway. So kudos. They'll be taking sports bets in the lobby. But anyway, thank you again for being here. We're thrilled to host this. We're thrilled to have you here. And if there's anything that I or any of the UCF team can do to help, please do not hesitate to ask, even if it's like, where's a good place to eat? We can maybe even help you with that. So let me take a moment now and introduce our keynote speaker, who we were really lucky to get. She's very busy. She's a nationally known speaker, has a tremendous reputation, does this often, and we were thrilled that we were able to convince her to come here and have her fitted into her schedule. So Dr. Michelle Pacansky-Brock, her work has helped online instructors across the nation understand how to craft relevant, humanized online learning experiences that support the diverse needs of college students. In her current role as faculty mentor for the California Community Colleges, she coordinates professional development in support of quality online teaching and learning, and is leading a $1.3 million California Learning Lab grant project that will examine the impact of humanized online instruction on diverse students in undergraduate online STEM courses in California. And I think that you're all in for a real treat. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Michelle Pacansky-Brock.
Hello. Is that on? Yes? Awesome. Thank you so much for that warm invitation and introduction, and the warm invitation I received to be here. I was so honored when the planning committee reached out and asked me to join you, and really happy when we were able to make this work. When I speak, I typically speak to an audience that is primarily faculty, primarily teachers, and then within that group, instructional designers, faculty developers, and et cetera. So it's, I consider it a real treat to be in a room of people who are dedicated to supporting faculty who teach online. Just a little bit about me. I started teaching at a community college in California in 1999 as a part-timer. Started teaching full-time in 2002 and started teaching online in 2003 and absolutely fell in love with it. At the time, I was amidst a conversation where I kind of felt like I was the only one who felt that way. And there was a lot of conversation about, actually a lot of shame about online teaching. You know, like, oh, it was just difficult. And I didn't really understand that. I was feeling very connected, more connected with my students. I was feeling like I was a better teacher online. I was experimenting with new tools, and things were just getting better and better the more I changed. And 7 years later, actually resigned from my tenured faculty role because I wanted to find something that was more connected to my interests and my passions. And I've been kind of in search of that since, and I've been in multiple different roles. Right now, I'm back with the California Community College system. The role that I'm in now, I've been in for about 2.5 years. And while I am a faculty member of a community college district, I actually work for a statewide initiative. So I work from my home office. I know I'm really lucky. And our team's focus is actually just what was talked about. At the state level, we are focused on bringing all 115 of our colleges together to have a conversation about quality online education and what that means. It includes online student services. Within that bigger team, the team that I work on, the part of that team that I work on, we're called the professional development team. And so our focus is the quality online teaching part. We have our own rubric in California that we are encouraging colleges to adopt and start local peer online course review processes around. I'm sure some of this sounds all familiar. But the really interesting thing about using rubrics, course design rubrics, is that when you really dig into them, the teaching part isn't always as intimately addressed, right? It's about developing a course, which is important, the high quality course design, so it's prepared to be taught effectively. But it's that effective teaching part that we're going to hone in on today. And yeah, I think with that said, I'm just going to go ahead and get started because I don't want to get too off track here. I do have my slides available for you at brokansky.com/topkit, and I have a lot of links and resources there that some of which I'll reference here, but it goes above and beyond. If there's things you want to read more about, dig into, check out those resources. I have some examples there that are included in my slides, and then some additional examples from online classes that really demonstrate what I'll be talking about. And if you are someone who tweets, I know you've got lots of hashtags to remember for this event. But if you do remember to include the hashtag HumanizeOL, it is the hashtag that it's a kind of a grassroots effort, what I'm talking about here. And so we do have this emerging hashtag HumanizeOL, and if you tag your tweet with that, you'll actually connect right into a community of folks who are very much committed to the ideas that I'll be sharing today. So to get us started, I'm going to have you take just a moment and reflect on your own life experiences and come up with a memory, a time in your life when you did not feel like you belonged. And I want you to know this is a safe space. I promise I'm not going to ask you to turn to your neighbor and share this with them in just a few moments. As an introvert, I need to know that when I'm going into this kind of activity. Okay, so reflect on a time in your life when you did not belong. I'm just going to give you a moment to think about that. Okay. Now that I've taken you to that yucky place, I'm going to have you just stew in it for a minute as we move forward, and we're going to loop back to that, and it will make sense in just a little bit. So where do I come from? as I said, I work in California. I'm part of the California Community College system. We do now have 115 community colleges. Has anyone heard anything about our 115th purely online community college? Okay, that's not who I'm representing. Just get that out of the way. And I say that because I really can't answer many questions about it, and it's kind of an interesting topic in our system. But really, the initiative that I am a part of, we are committed to supporting the 114 California community colleges, all of whom, by the way, use Canvas, which is a huge feat. I think it was the first time in our system that everyone agreed, just like every college said, yes, we're going to do this. And it precedes me. It was a project that started 5 years ago with the California Virtual Campus Online Education Initiative grant that is basically funding that comes from our chancellor's office. And the first thing that they did was get the colleges to agree to Canvas and to start paying for Canvas for the colleges. And that one little thing actually has really united all of our colleges, because now we have something in common. And before that, everybody was on different systems, and it was really hard to get a conversation around quality started. So that was really important. Within this system, we have more than 62,000 faculty members. 7 out of 10, and that's a rough number, are part-time, and many of those part-timers teach at more than one institution. Okay? We serve about 2.1 million students. Very diverse student group. 67% of our California Community College students identify as an ethnic minority. About 4 in 10 are first-gen students. 1 in 5 are homeless or do not have a stable place to live. 1 in 2 can't afford balanced meals or worry that food will run out before they have more money to buy more. And those last few slides drill into basic needs, threats of basic needs. And the Hope Center, led by Sarah Goldrick-Robb, who's fabulous, is the one really leading the effort to do this research. And they did a research study on the California Community College system last year. And I think it's really important to include this slide here, particularly in the context of what we're talking about here today, because different groups of students are disproportionately impacted by those basic needs threats. And that's really important to understand. The way that all of these identities also intersect. Identity isn't something that's kind of like just representative of one thing. And so this is something we need to be sensitive to and be aware of. Online courses matter, especially for students from minoritized groups. And I want to unpack what I mean, why I'm using the word minoritized. This is an underlying message that we believe in California. I think there's still some naysayers, there's still skeptics out there. The media, the press, the articles that we see online really kind of rub against the grain of this message sometimes. But we know that students who are minoritized are less likely to have the privilege to be on campus full-time. And I'm using the word minoritized for a very specific reason. We often use the word minority, which really kind of suggests that it's based on a number. And that's not what minoritization is about. Minoritization is an active social process that we are all complicit in. And it's like saying, okay, so if we take this one identity and we make, if there's more of those people, then those individuals wouldn't feel minoritized anymore. And that's not the way it works. We have a lot of issues in our society. We have a lot of racial issues, which is a #1 driver of making individuals particularly feel not included on our campuses and in online classes. And ensuring that all of our students have access to online classes is important to improving social mobility, but access does not equal success. It goes back to that high quality. So talking about success, let me unpack this chart that's on the slide here. I know this is a lot to look at. You see two horizontal lines moving from left to right, and along the bottom, these are years. So it starts with 2005 to 06, up to 2016, 2017. This is the latest data I have. In our California community colleges, if you go back to the year 2006 to 07, you'll see that we had, the top line is our face-to-face success rates, and the bottom line is our online success rates. So back then we had a 17% gap. That's just a little after the time I started teaching online, right? So that was kind of the thing that was referenced all the time, right? That's why online's bad. Online isn't as good. The quality is low. As if we have nothing to do about that, right? And over the years, as our quality efforts have improved, our success rate, the gap has really closed. It hasn't closed, but it's become better. So back in 2016, 2017, there was a 4% difference between our face-to-face and our online success rates, which is something to celebrate until we unpack that data point. So this is the data from 2016 to 2017. This is the 66%, that statewide rate. That's what that black line across the top represents. And then this is the data disaggregated by race and ethnicity. And you'll see that our white students and our Asian students are above the bar. And our African American or our Black students, our American Indian, Alaska Native, Hispanic, and Pacific Islander students are below. Now, that's as far as we get in terms of disaggregating our data. I want to see that data broken out by more identity factors, but we don't have that data to look at. But this is not okay. And it's not something we want to sweep under the carpet and just pretend like isn't happening. It's something that has to be at the center of our conversations. And that's really starting to happen in California. And we really want to shift the conversation around this and look at this as an opportunity. So we're trying to really be mindful about the words we're using to describe our students. Instead of looking at this as an achievement gap, we want to look at this as an opportunity gap. And this is the space that this presentation comes from today. I mentioned those media messages, right, that inform so many of the mindsets and the perceptions around online education. This is just a screenshot from a New York Times article. Online courses are harming the students who need the most help. Less proficient students tend to run into trouble. After all, taking a class without a teacher requires high levels of self-motivation, self-regulation, and organization. The words we use to describe our students and the mindsets that these words create about online classes. Just because a class is online, does that mean there's no teacher there? Weakest students, more likely to take online college classes, but do worse in them. The interaction between a student and an instructor is an intrinsic part of the educational process, and we need to be very, very cautious before watering down this requirement. Couldn't agree more, right? But to suggest that online is just by nature not going to work, instead of being introspective of our own processes and interrogate this problem, is not okay. And so that's essentially where we are. We're looking internally to understand what's going on and how we can improve this problem. And it starts with a mind shift. It starts with our mindset shifting. Some of you are already there, I know that. Some of you are looking at me like, I know this, I'm there. But most of us aren't. Equality is not the same as equity. Now, I'm pausing here and I'm stressing this because it was kind of a big moment for me when I got this, and I want to acknowledge that I'm a learner in this space too. I by no means want to stand up here and pretend that I'm the expert on this topic. It's uncomfortable for me to have a lot of these conversations, but I really believe that this is important. So what do I mean by equality is not the same as equity? We are coming out of a paradigm in higher education that suggests that we should treat all of our students the same to be equal. And if you really think about that, and particularly in the classroom, I did this. I'm guilty of this. You know, I can remember telling my students who would be brave enough to come to me and ask for an extension on an assignment, and I'd say, I'm sorry, because if I gave you an extension, I'd have to give everyone an extension. Why? But I said that because I had to be equal. I had to be fair. Equity is different. Equity is ensuring that each of our students has what they need to succeed. The problem with equality is that if we treat everyone the same, what does it suggest? That they're all the same, right? Our students are not all the same. Diversity is who's at the table. We serve a very diverse group of students. Inclusivity is ensuring that who's at the table feels comfortable. And equity is ensuring that who's at the table has access to what they need to succeed. And it's that inclusivity part where we have a problem in higher education, on our campuses, in our classrooms, online and face-to-face. A big part of this is recognizing our own privileges. As I stand before you today, I want to acknowledge that I am on a I'm committed to constantly trying to be aware of my privileges. The privileges afforded to me by the color of my skin, by my physical abilities, my cisgender, the fact that I'm heterosexual, right? These are all privileges. Being middle-aged, these all afford me with privileges. This is hard work. Recognizing our privileges it's not an outcome of a presentation. It's not an outcome of watching a TED Talk. It's not an outcome of reading a book. All of those things are helpful, or can be helpful, but it's an ongoing process. It takes a commitment, and it's hard. And also, as we become aware of our own privileges, we also become aware of biases that we didn't know that we had. Biases that inform how we react to other people, biases that inform how we speak to other people, who we invite to the table, who we don't invite to the table. This is really, really hard work. And this is the work that is happening within the colleges in California. We see lots of evidence of colleges coming together and putting students at the center and having conversations about equity. But the interesting part is that online classes aren't always folded into that conversation. It's almost like they kind of live in this crack, this crevice. So our question here today is, what barriers can we remove to make online courses more equitable to minoritized students? That's the question at hand here today. And that's going to take us back to that yucky feeling that you had to start. So feeling as if you don't belong, that's being marginalized, that's being minoritized. And whatever the experience was that you had, it may, think about this, we're not going to bring it to the surface and talk about it, but just think about this. It may have to do with your privileges. You know, we know that individuals from minoritized or racially or ethnically minoritized groups walk in rooms and scan rooms and look for people who look like them and oftentimes don't find them. I did a presentation about this a few years ago, and I had someone come up to me a few hours after the presentation, and he said to me, you know, and he was a white man. He said, I think you're really onto something, because you know, you asked us to think about a time, and I started thinking about when I go to weddings and everybody starts dancing, I feel really left out because I know I'm not a good dancer. That's difficult, right? And he said, and I know that if there are other people there to support me through that, it would help me through it. So I think you're really onto something. But the more I thought about that example that he shared, I thought, wow, that was the memory that you had. Some people sit there and go, I feel that way right now. I feel that all the time. These are powerful internal dialogues at play. And to suggest that they don't affect one's behaviors, to suggest that they don't get in the way of learning, that's not a problem. How many of you are familiar with the work of Claude Steele and Joshua Aronson, stereotype threat? I strongly recommend researching stereotype threat if you've never heard that term before. But it's an identity theory that's backed up with lots and lots of research. And it shows that human beings, including students, who identify with a negative stereotype, they kind of live in this place of being afraid that they're going to fall into that stereotype. And it's been shown to derail students in college. First of all, it's been shown to keep students from coming to college. If you haven't been sent the message that this is a place for you to be, right? College isn't, I don't belong there. But getting there, like living in that place, a student experiencing stereotype threat, they can take something that they make a mistake, like let's say, miss a due date. They'll take that as evidence that they can't do it, and they'll drop a class, right? So this is something we need to be mindful of, or faculty need to be mindful of in terms of, we say things like, reach out for help, right? We'll put that in our syllabus. Ask me for help if you need help. There, I've done my due justice. I've done my due diligence. Well, we've got to do more than that because a lot of students aren't going to reach out for help unless we have created an inclusive environment. It's also been shown that women in STEM courses, like if a woman gets a C in a class, that C could cause her to drop out because that C is evidence that she's not good enough. And what this is really about is it's unpacking the way the human brain works. We all are susceptible to feeling left out and not included, okay? And that's the point I was trying to make there, is that it is part of the human condition, but some of us experience it more prevalently than others. Learning is not just about cognition. It's not just about the acquisition of knowledge. And when you look at most of the work in higher education around teaching and learning, that's what we're focusing on. Almost everybody has seen Bloom's taxonomy, the cognitive domain. How many of you have seen the affective domain? That's, and I know some of you are shaking. I know, I have to remember who I'm speaking to. Of course, you've seen the affective domain, sorry. But it's often not valued the same, right? And there's a tremendous amount of neuroscience that is being done in this space right now. Antonio Damasio wrote a book called Descartes' Error. And there's this quote that I'm trying to remember. It says, "We are not thinking machines that feel. We are feeling machines that think." That's powerful. And if we go into the work that we do and be aware of how much the way we feel influences our behavior, it can be pretty mind-opening. Okay, so let me get into some of the theories. Laura Rendon's work, I know I have a piece cited here from 2011, but her work goes back into the 1990s. She did work on something called validation theory and did interviews with students from low-income backgrounds who have been successful in college. And they were asked, one of the questions they were asked is, when did you know you could be successful in college? When an instructor took time to learn my name, when an instructor gave me opportunities to see myself be successful, when I could see myself in the course's curriculum, when an instructor became a partner in my learning. There are a lot of colleges that employ these practices on campus as part of their equity efforts, again, we don't often see them applied to online. And I really think it's because we just don't know what it looks like, or we don't know how to do it. There was a study that came out in 2016 by Jaggers and Zhu, who asked the question, what course design feature influences online student performance most? The finding was that it was the quality of instructor-to-student interactions that stood out, that was most highly correlated with student grades. Do you consider that part of course design? Quality interactions, not quantity, quality interactions? I see some yeses and some nos. I think about course design, and our team thinks about course design and teaching as two sides of the same coin, right? They're very much integrated. But we have to dig deeper than preparing the course. Do faculty understand what inclusive interactions look like online? Is that part of what we teach in course design? Maybe, maybe not. But this was a powerful study. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering how we know if it's quality, what that study shows is that students correlate quality with the sense that their instructor cares about their learning. Yeah. So what these things point to is that interpersonal relationships are key to supporting the success of more students, face-to-face and online. These are very, I know oftentimes when we look at online, it's like, it's all just good teaching, folks, right? And you're right, it absolutely is. But it is important to shed light on these things and make them more integrated into what we're doing to support faculty. Whoops, don't know. Sorry. Okay. So, in a classroom, we know it's easier to be welcoming. Online, you have to be much more intentional about creating that welcoming environment. If not, students may not think you're a real person. 10 years ago, I was facilitating an online faculty development course, and I had a participant, a faculty member in my course. We were sharing in a voice thread, and she was talking about sending one of her online students a message about something that his performance, her performance, I can't remember, in the course. And the student wrote back and said, "Oh my gosh, I always thought my online teachers were computers." Now, that was about 10 years ago, and it sticks with me. I try to share that story all the time because it really did happen. Today, we have robots in online courses, right? This is part, AI, this is part of our landscape now. This is a very fragile time. And I'm not here to say that AI won't play a role or can't play a role in supporting all students in effective ways, but it should not take the place of an instructor-student relationship. When students know there's someone there at the other side of the screen who cares about their learning, they work harder. They push themselves. And I want to show a couple clips here, enough about talking about students, but these are a couple clips, two clips from students. The first one is Matthew, and Matthew's going to talk very briefly. It's a super quick clip, but listen to the words he chooses to describe his experience in his online class.
I can see that a professor isn't trying to interact with the course, and it's just little things like the automatic announcements that only show up at 12 a.m. on a Sunday. Like, it's all automated. They're just not, or you leave a question and ask the professor, and 3 weeks later you get a response. Like, that's when I start to judge, like, I just wish you wouldn't be here. Like, I wish you would focus your energy somewhere else because I'm not learning anything. But yeah, so that's the only judgment, is when you're not doing anything. We don't care when you make mistakes, though.
That last part was, we don't care when you make mistakes, though. I hope you could hear that okay. So this isn't to say that we can't use automated announcements. There's nothing wrong with using things that save time and make communications more efficient. But when that's all that we're doing, right, students don't feel a sense of social presence, a sense of there being a real human at the other end, or someone who cares about them. Now I'm going to contrast Matthew's video with a video by Kelly Ann. Now Matthew's video was actually recorded in a face-to-face setting, so he had a small group in front of him, and he of course gave us permission to record and share that. Kelly Ann was presenting in Zoom from her home on a student panel to an audience of hundreds and hundreds of educators. She was really nervous, and I just want to give her props for answering this question. She was asked to talk about late policies in her online class.
I feel that when the instructor assigns or gives us a due date, I feel that we need to be cognizant of that, respectful of that, and do our very best to get it done. However, there's the juxtaposition there is that we are taking online classes because we have life outside of the classroom. So the very reason that we are taking this communicates what we expect. Things happen. So being able to have that connection with your instructor and obviously be reasonable. For me, I was traveling a lot to see my mother-in-law who wasn't well, and we were getting stuck in airports, and I carry my desk everywhere with me, my little laptop and everything. And I also suffered, I had an accident, I suffered a TBI. I got in line, and I'm going to give her a big shout out, Cynthia Wilhelson from Cuesta College. I'm having a trouble here. I'm in Florida. I can't get to the pharmacy. And she just pushed it out a few days. I was able to breathe. I was able to get my work done. I'm going to cry. And that self-confidence came back. I did well. And I was so appreciative of that function. Very often I haven't seen it in a face-to-face class. Here's the due date. You show up to class, you show up to lab, and you're good to go. But this is one of the beauties of online school, is that it does happen. I do need to really place importance on the fact that we need to be respectful of what our instructors are asking of us as well.
A simple thing, like letting a student know that you see them, right? And I see you, I understand what you're going through, and yes, I'm going to give you a couple more days on an assignment. Motivation comes back, confidence comes back. And that goes back to that relationship. It goes back to an instructor teaching a class in a way that they know what's happening on the other side of the screen, creating an environment where students are comfortable reaching out for help. When it feels like nobody cares, students will disengage, particularly online. And when it feels like someone cares, students will lean in. Culturally responsive teaching is something that largely informs the practices that I'm getting to, I promise. In community colleges, in particularly also public universities that are committed to some kind of open access initiative, that's part of the mission. All of our students are not the same in terms of identity, but it's also those psychological barriers can also basically, what am I trying to say? We have dependent learners and we have independent learners. And part of one's goal as an educator is to support dependent learners to become independent learners. And that's what Humanizing is focused on doing, okay? And part of this culturally responsive teaching uses a framework called warm demander, and that comes from the work of Kleinfeld, I think her name is. From like the 1970s, not a new concept. But becoming a warm demander means that your instructor, the instructor is a learning partner, so learning is a partnership, and how do you convey that? How do students know that? Those are the questions that we need to ask. What is it that we do at the beginning of a class to ensure that that's articulated to students? Cultivate the intellectual capacity of dependent learners. Again, knowing that when there's someone at the other side that cares, students push themselves and they work harder, and that develops their intellectual capacity and helps them build the confidence to move into an independent learner who's going to be more effective and more successful, particularly in an online environment. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. It's a beautiful thing to watch. But what does that look like online? And also, what digital fluencies does it require faculty to possess? Because that's a really big part of that. And so these are two questions that we have baked inside of a course that we offer to faculty in the California Community College system. It's called Humanizing Online Teaching and Learning. And I want to share, this is just a video clip of a faculty member from Miramar College in California. Her name is Denise Meduli-Williams, and she teaches English as a second learner.
Hi to all my online students. Here we are starting week 2. I just pulled up onto campus and I wanted to tell you everything's live on Canvas. The module's ready to go. I really enjoyed meeting you and learning all about you on our week 1 Flipgrid and our student survey. And I can't wait to get into week 2. You're going to be starting your first multi-draft essay. So as I walk on campus, I also wanted to let you know how you can find me when you're on campus. So my office is here in the H building, Humanities building, and I'm gonna walk you over and show you where my office is. So you just wanna head into the faculty offices, H110, and head down the hallway. Okay, and here's my office. H11001, right at the end of the hallway. So all I'm doing when I'm in my office is waiting to see you. So stop by if you need help when you're on campus or just to say hi. And of course we have our online office hours through Zoom as well.
Would you feel a little bit more comfortable going to talk to that instructor after seeing that? Denise uses a free app called Clips. It only works on iOS. Shaking your head, you've seen it. Yeah, Clips is pretty cool. It only works for Apple. It's actually, I think it's an Apple app, so that's why it's, if there is something comparable on Android, let me know, because I don't have an Android, so I'm just not up to speed on that. But it has the captioning baked in. It does auto captions that you can actually quickly go in and edit. And then from your mobile device, you can push it out to Twitter. You can push it out to Instagram, which she does. And I follow her, and her students follow her. She also embeds it in her learning management system in Canvas. So it's easy to do all of those things. Yeah, and so that's an example. Like video, unpacking what video can be. It doesn't have to be you standing in front of a fancy green screen with a really expensive camera and clipping out all of your ums and ahs, right? The more videos look like that, how does that break down one's anxiety about going to speak to a professor, right? It kind of reinforces that hierarchy. So the more we can be real people and learn to use video in these simple ways that doesn't take a lot of time, the more effective faculty can be. And so that is part of this Humanizing course that we offer. It's a 4-week course. It's designed by and for online educators. I designed this course, I facilitated it a couple times, and now it's facilitated by faculty from within our system. And we pay them to facilitate the course, and we charge a nominal fee, and the fees for the course actually offset the facilitation. The course is actually available for adoption. It's shared with the Creative Commons CC by license. And there is a link on my resource site to go get it in the Canvas Commons if that's something you're interested in doing. The framework around humanizing focuses on presence, empathy, and awareness. These are the 3 things that we want faculty to start thinking about, and I'm going to take you through a few practices. And I want to acknowledge something. I'm speaking with you right now to kind of a transition point. It's kind of an interesting juncture. If you, whoops, didn't mean to do that. If you go download that course and look at it, some of these practices are not going to be in it, Because right now I'm leading, it was mentioned when I was introduced that I'm part of a grant that's looking at the efficacy of humanizing, and particularly looking at whether or not humanized courses do improve equity gaps. We're trying to get some research around this. And so I'm actually designing a 6-week humanizing course for STEM faculty. And some of the practices that I'm mentioning here are built into that course, which will be shared openly, but not for another year or two towards the end of our grant. We're kind of in a pilot stage now. But I'm really excited about some of this stuff. So a liquid syllabus made with Google Sites. What does that mean? And why would we want to create a liquid syllabus when we already have a digital syllabus, right? So liquid syllabus is kind of the term that we're using, but you can think about it, I like to think about it also as like a welcome kit. And it doesn't have to be Google Sites. The point here is that you're using a web tool to create a website that's mobile friendly and public. So before an online class starts, you reach out and you make that pre-course contact, and you include a link to this resource and say, check out this liquid syllabus or this welcome kit. And it's really what it's about is preparing students for success in that first week. What do they need to have to get started? What are the due dates of that first week? And also when you're using a web tool, right, students, they've got their phone, they're reading that email, they tap on it, they don't have to go figure out how to log in if it's their first course, you know? If it's, you imagine yourselves being a student in an online class, maybe it's the first one you're taking, and what if you get this on your phone? How would you feel differently?
Hi scholars, my name is Katie Whitman Conklin and I'm going to be your instructor this semester. A little bit about me, I lived in the Central Valley of California for a lot of years.
So I just have that clipped off there. And so that's something else that we're having faculty do is create a liquid syllabus and create a welcome video. Because when you're using a tool that's designed for digital content, which usually, you know, it's either, if so, it's usually locked behind a learning management system. But when it's public, you can embed video very easily. And then when they come to the course, we're having faculty think very critically about their homepage. What are the cues that students receive? How are they cued that this is an environment that they're going to be supportive in, that their instructor cares about them? And so we're getting faculty to think about what different ways to use that homepage.
Hi everyone. Welcome to our homepage.
I'm Mike Smitzhammer.
And I'm Tracy Shalin.
Click the Start Here button to go to the first page in our Getting Started module.
This module will get you oriented to our class.
We'll see you there.
Wow.
So those are two facilitators that live hundreds of miles from each other. You know, they did a little behind the scenes editing with Camtasia to pull that together, but fun, lighthearted, simple. And we're also introducing faculty to Canva, which is a free graphic design tool. And I know this is a lot, and it's not to expect everybody to take everything in and do it all, but exposing faculty to these different things and helping them to see, oh, I could do this, I could try that. It can be very powerful. Throughout the facilitation of the course, this is one of our amazing facilitators, Fabiola Torres. She does incredible things with her face-to-face and her online classes. She's coined this term, video postcards.
Hi everyone, I'm saying hello to you from beautiful Disneyland, Tom Sawyer Island, my favorite spot. I like to send random videos to my students, you know, just to make them feel like I'm thinking about them when I'm in a place like Tom Sawyer Island. That's it. See you guys.
And I've been with Fabiola at conferences. I've been with her. We were in a car driving not that long ago at a conference, and she pulled out her phone, and she uses Pronto. I don't know if you've heard of Pronto, but it's kind of like Slack, and it has a Canvas integration. And she just recorded a quick video. She's like, hey, I'm at this conference. I'm learning all, you know, I'm getting better at teaching online. And just because it's important to me, you're important to me. And she sent her message to her students. And So, that's kind of a neat thing too. And this is another video postcard from Tracy that was part of our Humanizing course that I just think is kind of fun.
Hi everyone. For this week's introductory video, I am coming to you from the gas station. Why not? I'm here until the tank fills, and replenishing my fuel makes me think about where I'm headed. Not just in my car, but also where we're headed in our course. Module 3 focused on empathy.
Yeah, so again, thinking differently about video. And I think oftentimes faculty feel like they need that permission to not be perfect, which is a really interesting conversation. It's really a fascinating experience to converse with faculty about this. It's like all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's okay for me to do. The more students can understand you as a faculty member as something other than an academic, like as a real person. And everybody is comfortable with sharing different aspects. Like, you get to decide what you share. That's what's important about this. If you see a video and think, oh, I would never do that, that's okay, don't go there. But what would you be willing to share? Maybe you just want to record a video in front of a fireplace, right? Or outside in front of a bush with a baseball cap on. Those are different ways to just kind of make yourself more relatable to students. Another humanizing practice is incorporating a survey, a getting to know you survey, which can include lots of different questions. I have 2 highlighted here that to me have been the most impactful in my teaching, and I get feedback from others that they're very impactful in theirs as well. In one word, describe how you're feeling about this class. You get the answers from that question, and you can scan the list and identify right away who says anxious, nervous, overwhelmed. Those are the students that need an instructor's high touch. Those are the students that an online instructor should reach out to. And you know what? Hey, if you could send them a video, woo, make their day. They'll remember you for the rest of their life. Please share one thing that may interfere with your success in this class. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of stuff. Mostly students say things like, I'm really busy, I'm working this much time, right? Which is pretty indicative of most online students. But you'll also, and I keep saying you'll, and I'm sorry, I'm so used to speaking to people who are in the classroom, but faculty will often find that students who say, my mother is on hospice and I'm her sole caregiver and I'm working, or I'm working 2 jobs and I have a child who's severely disabled. And another one, I'm pregnant and I'm going to deliver halfway through this course. Happens all the time. When you know that, when an instructor knows that, and what we encourage faculty to do is there's a notes column in the gradebook in Canvas that can be enabled. Make a note in the gradebook column so it's right there. So when you're noticing that someone's not engaging, check the notes. Oh, she may have just had her baby. Reach out to that student. That's a perfect way to let a student know that they matter and that you care. And we call that adaptive teaching, to use that data and then adapt how one teaches to support the needs of individual students. Telling stories is a really important part of humanizing. There is neuroscience research that shows that when a human listens to a person telling a story, the same parts of the listener's brain fire that the speaker's brain fire. So when faculty can start to tell their own stories, struggles that they have had, it helps the students identify or have empathy for the faculty member, which creates this relationship. But when we can also invite students into an environment to share their own stories, not only are we acknowledging that their stories matter, because we're creating a place in the learning environment for them, but it helps students to make connections with other students that they're more likely to identify with. And some of the tools that we use for this, I've mentioned, we encourage faculty to experiment with YouTube as a hosting service because it's free. I realize a lot of institutions have their own services as well. Adobe Spark Video is a great tool. Flipgrid and VoiceThread are two asynchronous voice video conversation tools that we use in we use Flipgrid in the Humanizing course. VoiceThread really requires a site license to have the captioning built in and all the other stuff. And this is an example of a video from our Humanizing course, a participant in our introduction Flipgrid.
Hey everybody, my name is Sil Arena. Sil is short for Sylvester. I teach digital photography at Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo. I'm down at Morro Strand, the beach that runs from the town of Morro Bay where I live, all the way up to Cayucos on the central coast. And I'm down here with my sweet dog Ruby, who is a golden retriever. She's 13 years old and she hates to be photographed, but I'm distracting her with a rock because she loves to fetch rocks at the beach. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is that Ruby has recently been diagnosed with cancer, which of course is super sad, but she's helped us raise our 3 boys, and we're taking great care of her. And I come down to the beach with her every day because this is where she loves to be. So it's a wonderful way to spend the summer. Looking forward to getting to know all of you a little.
I bet you'll remember Ruby for a long time. So again, that's an example of storytelling. It can be as simple as that. The wisdom wall is a practice that gives students an opportunity to position themselves as experts. It also gives them an opportunity to develop metacognition by reflecting on their own learning. It communicates learning as a process that occurs over time. And it also supports growth mindset. And these are all things that have been shown to improve stereotype threat. And it's pretty simple. The concept is that you ask students a prompt, you ask them to reflect on something. This prompt is at the end of a course. This is from one of my classes. I ask students to think back to the beginning of the course. Where were you at the beginning of the course? What were you thinking about? How were you feeling? What do you know now that you wish you had known then? So they're sharing advice, and then I take that and share it with the next group of students, with those students' permission. And so when the next group of students come in at the start, they're listening to past students, right? And student voices resonate very differently than instructor voices. I believe I have a clip to a video from this on the website, if you want to listen to some of the students there. So trying to understand the impact, at this point we have, we don't have the research that shows that this is working, but we're working on it. But I do have some reflections, some outcomes that we've observed. This is from one of the first courses that I taught. This was a math instructor. I almost wanted to quit the evening the short video was due. The empathy shown by Michelle drove me to want to get it done, if nothing else, to let her know her believing in me did not go unnoticed or unappreciated. I used to have the belief that I have very little to do with the success of my online students. I used to tell them that I have all the math videos made, all the resources are there for them, and eventually it's up to them to succeed. While I still believe parts of the statements, I was very wrong in saying I have little to do with their success. Woohoo! And this is one of our participants.
I learned to get over some unwarranted trepidation, but more than anything, the principles of humanizing online learning have continued to stay with me and to challenge me to improve my courses each time I teach. In fact, even while I'm teaching. So I find that the level of interaction among the students is higher, and I'm getting some really great feedback from the students.
We see faculty repeatedly come back to the facilitators of this course and say, I like teaching online more than ever now because they feel more connected with their students. And that's a pretty positive outcome too, in my opinion. Being introduced to Flipgrid and Adobe Spark was like finding the closet to Narnia. I love that quote because oftentimes, we hear, my faculty would never do that. Well, let's not shoot everything down because there are a lot of faculty who would and who are thirsty for new tools and trying to figure out how they can make themselves more present in their courses. They just don't know how to do it. Where am I at with time here? Okay, I'm going to play this video. This is an outcome. So this is an actual example that an instructor created for her online class after the Humanizing class. She had a student lounge or area where students could converse with one another, and I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, she changed the name of that to the truck stop and shared this video.
The truck stop may seem like an odd name for a discussion board designed for student interaction. Well, there's a story that makes it the perfect name for such a place. This is a picture of me and my dog Lulu. I was about 5 years old. This part of my childhood I spent living in a small town called Roxton in eastern Texas. This town was really small. It was an agricultural town and there was not much there. My dad was a farmer. We lived on a large farm way out of town. On the weekends and during the summer, there was nothing more that I looked forward to other than going to the truck stop. A truck stop is a facility that's usually by a highway and includes a diner, fuel pumps, and other services for long-haul truckers. Truck stops often serve locals too. In my childhood experience, it was where the farmers went for breakfast. It was more than just a place to grab some food, though. It was a place where the local agricultural community came alive. As I sat and enjoyed my pancakes, politics, commodity prices, the weather, and the latest town gossip were exchanged. Deals were made and laughs were shared. In a time before cell phones, social media, and instant messaging, the truck stop on the outskirts of Roxton, Texas, served as a discussion forum for the locals.
I forgot to say she teaches agriculture, particularly food society and the environment. And so you see, again, video, storytelling, right? And what a smart way to weave in storytelling to introducing a discussion forum. And if you're not familiar with Adobe Spark Video, which I'm sure many of you are, it is free. So, and it can also be kind of a lower risk for faculty because they don't have to show themselves in the video. So it's something to consider. Another quote, I'm so excited to finally know how to use YouTube. Like we have faculty who record a video and it's, they record it up and down and they put it in YouTube and we go, okay, next time try turning your camera like this. And they're like, oh my gosh, like those little successes really mean a lot. They get really excited. For the sake of time, this is another video I'm gonna skip over, but another introduction video. I sent my students my first video postcard and received a gushing email from a student who was planning to drop and then saw he had a kind teacher and said he decided to stay. We see lots of those messages. My communications with students have uncovered so many of the obstacles my students are facing that I would have no idea about. The cool thing is that I've been able to refer them to resources on and off campus. It's been eye-opening in so many ways that something so simple could mean so much. Wow. And I want to leave you with this. In my opinion, the barrier to getting here is not technology. It's not getting faculty to use new tools, which unfortunately I think is too often identified as like, no, faculty won't do that. I don't even go there. The barrier is that relationships start with psychological safety, and that requires us to take off our armor and be vulnerable. And that is a hard thing to get a faculty member with a PhD or a master's degree who's been positioned and expected to be a subject matter expert to do. And that's something that's really important to keep in mind, and it's something that we address in this course. Like, we know this feels weird. We know part of you wants to run for the hills and not do this. We know looking at a webcam and talking doesn't feel natural, right? But we're doing this for our students. And the other thing, we expect our students to do this every day. When we require, reach out to help. Well, you didn't tell me. I didn't know that was going on. That requires a student to step into a vulnerable place. That requires trust. Trust is taking something that's important to you and making it vulnerable to another person. That's trust. and we expect our students to do it every day. So I think that's our greatest barrier. And when we start losing our tolerance for vulnerability, uncertainty, and risk-taking, we move away from the things that we need and crave the most, like joy and love and belonging, trust, empathy, and creativity. And it is my hope that these things will be at the heart of education, not something that gets left by the side. I never leave a presentation without a quote from Brene Brown. I'm a total fangirl. And that's it, folks. Thank you very much. I appreciate your attention. We have a few minutes if anybody has any questions. Yeah, do we need a mic or is this okay? I think there's a mic coming.
I am actually a faculty member. Hi.
Oh, good.
And I wanted to know with the video postcards, how do you push that? Do you push it through Canvas? Hello. I'm wondering with the video postcards, how do you push it through Canvas or do you push it outside of Canvas?
So the faculty who are using video postcards do it in a variety of different ways, and it really depends on the tools that they're using. Some of our faculty are just using their smartphones, and they're uploading those videos to YouTube so that they can caption them and then put them in the course. Some of our faculty are using clips, and they are pushing them out to they have a Twitter account or an Instagram account that they use just for teaching, and they tell their students, you can follow me here if that's a place where you are, but they will also put it in Canvas. So it's something you can download and upload elsewhere. So I think it's important to, if you're going to do outside, you definitely need to do it inside as well. And there was something else I was going to say. I lost it, sorry.
It'll come back to you.
I don't know about that.
Another question?
We have one more over here.
Hi. Are you seeing ways that faculty are learning how to guide students to support beyond themselves, like the student services and career services? I mean, I just love the way that they're building an access to getting help from the individual faculty member, but how are they building it and connecting the dots to usually services that are on campus?
Yeah, and that did come out in a couple of the quotes that I shared, and that's the only evidence that we have right now. As you know, it's very hard to track the outcomes of professional development. But that is something that we're seeing coming out in the quotes that faculty do share back with us. It's like they're used to doing it on campus, and now when they have students that they know are grappling with certain things, they're introducing them and connecting them to other resources. Yeah.
I just love the idea that they're opening the door for engagement rather than the waiting to come. And I think that can be applied to the coaching model for student success and other things outside of just the curriculum piece.
Great point.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Oh, we have time for one
No,
more?
you've got one. You raised your hand. We're going to get to you.
I am so thrilled with your message, and I'm curious, how are you marketing this? How is your faculty and others learning about this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So our courses, every course, so we offer courses. We offer facilitate online courses, and that's only one of the courses we offer. The team that I work on, you can go to our website. It's onlinenetworkofeducators.org and see our courses. But it's really word of mouth. We have faculty, of course, who are charged with supporting online faculty development on campus that spread the word. We have some campuses that pay for it for their faculty, but a lot of it's just word of mouth, that hashtag. This is grassroots. This is grassroots stuff. Like if you go up to our leadership, it's not really even on their radar yet. And I think that there's something to be said about looking to teachers, right? These grassroots communities, it's super exciting. So I'm a big fan of the hashtag, and so we're going from the grassroots up is what we're doing with this, yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. We really
Thank you,
appreciate your
thank
time.
you.
No.
I'll grab my phone.
Yeah, grab the phone.